And Joe Creasy already went ahead and...
Following contains violence, coarse language, and adult situations not suitable for minors. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, I guess. You may have noticed the name of the channel changed. Yeah, we're doing a bit of rebranding, trying to get YouTube to not see us for a little bit longer.
Yes, apparently having alcohol in your name is not kid-friendly.
Yeah, I know, right? Huh, how interesting. It's not like I don't put these are not kid-friendly in the it's not like I don't open the stream with hey, this is a content warning. But anyway, yes, so I hesitate to say we ran out of ideas, just nothing happened over Christmas and throughout the month of January.
Apart from truckers.
Apart from truckers, which I will planning on making a video about that and the Russia thing here next week, hopefully. Fingers crossed. But yeah, so we're just gonna read bad fan fiction because there's really isn't anything better to do than just sitting back, putting on the internet and saying, "How can you disappoint me today?" So this following fic is written by someone who I know of tangentially. So I used to be a fan of Josh Scorcher, and Lilly Orchard at that time, who was going by Lily Pete, was his editor, and they had a falling out. So I learned of her through him, and I watched some of her content, and sometimes she does a really, really interesting video. Like she begins to examine things. She examines things very much through her own lens and has some interesting thoughts on how media is written and things like that. But that content is long past her. Mostly nowadays she just is a raging leftoid who has many, many issues.
Yes, as we will soon find out.
Yeah.
Yes, I've known about Lilly Orchard since his/her Steven Universe video.
Yeah.
And
Which I think I've watched that. It's been a while. But I thought that was a really good examination of why Steven Universe shouldn't be,
I mean, Lilly Orchard pretty much labeling all conservatives as bigots, pretty much rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, like there are moments where her very real bias against what she believes to be conservative thought come out. Oh, but generally it depends on depending on the video. It's sort of like Mahler's take on H Bomber Guy in his Dark Souls response. It's where it can be a hit or it can be a miss. It can be a very much interesting video with the topic itself thought out and thought through, or it's just I don't like this thing that this show did.
Yes. All right. So I became aware of this about this fanfic because a while back Smudcast did a response to Lilly Orchard's video I think it was about writing villains, and then she did a plug for her Star Wars fanfic, and it just sounded like the cringiest fucking thing. So I've been wanting to cover this for a while.
And I was always up for, reading a bad fic, so let's get into it, shall we?
Star Wars, Revenge of the Cringe.
The Sith Resurgence. So, all right. So I guess I'll start us off.
Thank you for joining us, Joe Crazy.
Yeah, thank you for joining us in this video, Joe Crazy. You must be new here. We haven't run you off yet. Eliana let out a strained groan as she trudged through the sands of Jakku. She hated desert planets. They were hot, devoid of life, and only inhabited by the Hutts looking to capitalize off the waste left by the Republic. Jakku was no different, and in Jakku was no different. In fact, it was more infested with Hutts than ever after the Galactic Civil War ended and Star Destroyers were left all over the planet.
Well, at
Unfortunately
least
for
Lily
Alana,
Orchard remembered the huts.
Aliana, Jakku was also the closest place to Odessin with a scrap dealer, which she was finding herself in increasing need of as her ship continued to age. She glanced back at the dwindling silhouette of the Fury, an old Sith Empire ship that she'd grown too fond of to throw away for her own good. That ship was going to be at the end of her one of these days, and the sand in her shoes scratching up her legs told her that today just might be the day.
Hey, John Rice. Haven't seen you in a long time. How's it going?
Yeah, John Rice, we changed the name so YouTube avoids us. We can avoid YouTube's notice a little bit longer. I don't disagree, Joe Crazy. I don't. All right, so um, so I don't know if this is supposed to be like off of canon, but okay. As far as we are aware, there are no Hutts on Jakku. Like, as far as the information we are given in The Rise of Skywalker, Jakku doesn't seem to have any form of centralized government. It's just a bunch of tribal people living in the tribal desert, where, Star Destroyers are frequent and plentiful. Which
Are
the
there?
reason supposedly for that is one of the last battles took place over that planet.
Yes. As seen in a trilogy that I have no interest in reading.
Hmm. Okay, and then there's this. So, the last major Sith Empire before um before Darth Bane was almost three I believe in the EU timeline somewhere between 2 and 3,000 years before Darth Bane and the Brotherhood of Darkness.
So that would put about 4,000 years before the events of this story, right?
Exactly. I believe she wanted it to be as close to canon as possible, but the sequel, it forgets a few things. Yeah, that's it's definitely a way to put it. But this ship should not exist anymore. At least not any workable condition. It's a museum piece, and there would be almost no way to find parts. Like cars from the 20s, that you can, if you find one, they are not only very, very expensive to restore, but very hard to find because they're obsolete. They don't run like modern cars. They don't even have similar parts to modern cars. Because we've continually made improvements and upon them. So comparing an engine from the 20s to a modern engine is like comparing the bow and arrow to a modern, assault rifle, fully automatic assault rifle. You can see they arguably do the same thing. One, the car gets you from point A to point B, but the method by which they deliver that is entirely different and entirely influenced by the technology of the day. this Sith Empire ship, even if she got it from Darth Bane's era, still would be a museum piece because Darth Bane happened about 1,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. So this thing is older than dirt, and it still functions and flies perfectly fine. She's able to find parts that work for it. How? Oh, almost 1,000. It's got to be almost 1,100 years since this was a common type of ship. Like if it had been like a snub fighter from the Clone Wars, that would make sense. Antique though they may be, they're still relatively within 100 years or so. Whew, let's keep going because we've got quite a bit to get through tonight, actually. She turned her attention back to Nema Outpost, continued trudging her way through the sand, once again cursing her attachment to the Fury. The ship was simply too recognizable to be landed closer to the outpost. The Empire and the First Order hadn't bothered to change their aesthetic design, and the Fury looked too much like an enlarged TIE ship to be expected not to draw attention, and as such, she was forced to walk the large distance through the dunes and sand. Hold on.
Dunes and sand. That sounds a little redundant.
Dunes and sand is very redundant.
It'd be dunes of sand would be probably be more appropriate.
Or, sand dunes
Yeah,
of
sand dunes of
Jakku.
Jakku. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Okay. So this is what a Fury class ship looks like. A Fury class interceptor. Presumably that's what she's got. How does this look in any way adjacent to a starfighter, to a TIE fighter?
The cockpit at least looks similar.
The cockpit looks similar, but that's it. This is A, it's bigger. Or B, it's like its design is nothing like a TIE fighter's.
I guess it's sort of like a TIE fighter if the wings were sideways. Or if the wings were lying
Like
down.
if she told me that, like, if this was what she was describing, which all she does is say it's an old Empire ship. If we're going to believe that she is attached to this thing, it should be described very, very well. But I'm guessing Lilly just decided, hey, I'm just gonna leave it as vague as possible. That way I don't have to do research on what these ships are actually. Like if she was talking about this, I'd believe it. Because yes, it bears more resemblance to the TIE build scheme. But she has like crew quarters. It's mentioned later in the fic, like she has crew quarters, a kitchen of some, like a mess of a canteen or mess of some sort. Like she has things in here. This is just a cockpit. This is a fighter. It's not meant for long distance travel. I doubt it would even have a hyperdrive equipped. This makes more sense. So how is this not the ship she's how is this in any way close to what a TIE fighter looks like? You know what? She said to herself as she kicked her foot into the dune. kicking up a cloud of sand. I really hate this stuff. What an odd thing to say, just out loud randomly. It was an hour before Eliana made it to Nima Outpost, and the first thing she did was find herself something to refill her water tankard with. Ooh. It's so wordy. Why are you so wordy? That, like, all you needed to do was say, you find herself. The first thing she did was find herself some water.
I
There
guess
was
to
no.
establish that she has a tankard.
I guess, but why do we need to know that? Like, she's in the desert and she's walked at least an hour. I would assume she has some form of water.
I know this is an extreme nitpick, but it kind of bugs me that the paragraphs aren't tabbed at the beginning.
Um, so I know Archive of Our Own. I'm on there actually fairly frequently. He, that's just how it is. It's just the format of the website. So it's not anything she did the writing did intentionally. It's just the format of the website. Here we go. There was no shortage of people willing to trade water, but that they always wanted something of value instead of typical hut currency. Okay, is hut currency not why?
Yeah, that sounds pretty valuable.
Currency was flimsy out here in the backwater worlds, especially when there was little to buy with it. But again, if the huts are here, there's very much like the huts don't live in squalor ever. Like Jabba has a whole ass palace, and in the Clone Wars series, we see that the huts very much live lives of luxury, except that one hut that lives in a swamp. But I think she's the exception rather than the rule. But still, like, why, if the huts control this area, why is it not more, developed? Like, if the huts are in charge of this outpost, this thing should be very developed. They should have guards everywhere, or they are the law, kind of things. And their currency would very much buy things. But I guess for the huts or whatever Lilly decides they should be, even Nima's own goons traded in ration packs, sealed packages of polystarch and veg meat that provided a lot of nutrition at relatively low cost. They were made for soldiers, but for the hungry and desperate scavengers of Jakku, they were worth more than Electrum. I have no issue with that sentence. That's actually a very well, like, yes, it's exposition, but it's necessary exposition. We might not know what ration packs are. Even though this probably doesn't really need to be there, it's interesting world building at the very least. Hence, why is there a paragraph here? You could have just made a bigger paragraph. Hence, why money was of little use out here. And, oh, okay, so I know it's basic bitch writing, but never begin a sentence with and. Like, like delete and. The only thing of value who Alana had was clipped to her belt and far too dangerous in the hands of anyone not equipped to handle it. Whoa. Okay, I'm sensing a pattern here. Or this is going to be a thing where she sort of repeats what she's already said. It, like, in the hands of anyone not equipped to handle it. Why not say it's dangerous for those, far too dangerous for those not equipped to handle it? Or far too dangerous in the hands of anyone else.
Welcome, Legacy.
Yes, she began with and. She did. No, trading her lightsaber was out of the question. If her mother could have seen her even entertain the idea, she'd have never heard the end of it. Alana had supplies on the ship and tradable goods. In a pinch, she could always barter with what she had on the ship and return to fetch it. But for now, she needed to find someone willing to trade. Okay, so Alana had supplies on the ship, tradable goods, and tradable goods. In a pinch, she could. All right, so again, why is this sentence here? If it's to introduce the idea of Alana's mother training, that could have been brought up elsewhere. But trading her lightsaber was out of the question. Well, it's a lightsaber. We understand that those are very highly valuable. Why would she care about what? Crazy. So, like, Alana had supply. So she's got supplies and tradable goods on the ship. Yep. Which is fine. But again, why is her mother just brought up out of nowhere? Or instead of no, trading her lightsaber was out of the question. We already understand that point. We already understand that. Assuming she's either so if Lily didn't give the game away with the Sith resurgence or the old Sith Empire ship and da 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 da, we understand as people who are fans of Star Wars. That's a good point, Joe. Why, if she's a Sith, why does she care what her mother thinks of her? But again, we understand as Star Wars fans that trading away a lightsaber would be already out of the question. Like, yeah, why does she bother with her mother's opinion of her? Unless her mother trained her, which I think is the case. But this could have been brought up organically, later in the fic. Like, when when Alana is training or meditating, something like that, something that could organically bring us back to like, oh, right, I remember the lessons my mother taught me when she was training me to be a Sith about like how to do certain things and how to fuel certain emotions. But as in terms of her being disappointed in her, why is this brought up like this?
Wait, so was her mother a Sith too?
I don't know.
Uh, okay,
We don't know about that, but
a Sith training their child to be a Sith.
it's not it wasn't uncommon in the days of the Old Republic. Like where the MMO takes the time period of the MMO, that whole thing that takes place in an era where Sith would actually train their children to be Sith. Now, for like formal training, they were sent off to the Sith Academy, but for up until that point where they had to be sent off, they were trained by their parents. So she did manage to fill her water tankard by stealing ration packs from the concession area and trading them to a moisture farmer. It was crude, but it would make the trek back to the Fury all the easier. And besides, the Hutts had plenty of money and resources. They could handle a few skimmed ration packs. Again, the mention of the Hutts, but we never saw who was in. Like, we never got the big picture of who was in control of Jakku. like the implication you get from the way they have things is that um from the way they have things set up is that it's just local outposts with the people that have just sort of crash landed there, living as they do. The better question is, why is stealing the ration packs for a legal trade of to a moisture farmer, random moisture farmer, just he was there, instead of just killing or mentally dominating someone with the force to get them to give you what you want? Like a true Sith would have had no issue with that. Like they would have viewed it as a necessary thing to make sure they survived. Or a lot of skimmed ration packs. Alana thought briefly as she considered swiping the lot and handing them out like candy. It would certainly help the funny looks, at least. What? What's going on? What? Where? How did we get here? Is Alana reading the fic too? Like, what is this? Jesus. I feel like I'm not articulating why this is such a weird thing. So, like, she arrives at Nima outpost. So she arrives at Nima and basically goes into this thing about how currency is worthless, so she has to trade, but she doesn't have anything really to trade except her lightsaber. So she steals some ration packs from the concession area, which why do they have them like just standing out there where people can steal them unguarded? It trades them to a moisture farmer, and then suddenly we're talking about how people are giving her funny looks. Not mentioned before in any way, but sure, I guess. Also, like, so, and besides, the huts have plenty of resources. They could handle a few skimmed ration packs, or a lot of. Is Alana clapping back at the narrator? I mean, possibly, Joe, but I that's a good question because this is not like this is written as if we're being told this by someone else, or at least like third person sort of omniscient kind of thing. N- But suddenly we have this line as if Alana can hear what was said before. Like as if Alana can read or is aware of this little click, because this little snipe, because as her response would be something someone would say back. With a heavy sigh, she made her way to the scrap dealer. Not a lot sold on Nima Outpost. It was mostly a place for scavengers to turn in their finds, but enough of them had speeders that it became worthwhile to keep some stock for sale. This, of course, only attracted smugglers, hermits, and Alana herself to the planet to get universal ship parts for cheap. Okay. She approached the miserable looking human that sat ugh. She approached the miserable looking human, sat at the scrap table. Morning, Triag. Egg, she said cheerfully. Trig was a lovely soul, a helpful dealer who always managed to help Alana find exactly what she needed. Well, with a little persuading at the very least. Okay, there's that thing again, that little quirk of her writing, which I think is possibly intentional. Why would anyone write like this? Or if you've got like, or after multiple reads throughs, find things like this and be like, that's not necessary. I can do it like this, and it'll be fine. A helpful dealer who always managed to help Alana. So we're redundant again. Treg looked up, his face wrinkled in disgust when he saw her. What do you want, Sith? Okay, just out of nowhere, this man can identify her as a Sith?
I guess he already knew in advance. Maybe
I
she
guess.
revealed herself to him.
Yeah. You notice that she also doesn't describe what he looks like either. Like, we don't get even like a basic description, like him being portly or, you know, having sort of interesting things about him. It's very much about his only trait, his only character existence is he is able to help Alana. I don't know if I'm actually pronouncing her name correctly, but I don't honestly care either.
Aliana.
Aliana? Ugh. Alana is fine. But yeah, it's like she doesn't bother describing this man to us, despite the fact that she's actually holding a conversation with him. Like, the moisture farmer's fine. I'm fine with letting that go because it's a 2-second conversation. Like, how much do you want? How many ration packs do you want for this? For some water. He's like, 3, fine, done, here. Or that would have been a pointless interaction to stick in here, but now we're actually interacting with this NPC. This, I guess, NPC is an appropriate term, and we don't even know what he looks like. She couldn't be bothered to describe him in any way. And apparently one can guess that he knows what she is based on previous interactions, but why would she tell him? Thank you, Legacy. For now, we'll imagine that Alana is talking to a piece of wood.
Yes,
So,
I'll imagine him looking like Plank from Ed, Ed, and Eddie.
like, what do you want, Sith? Exactly. The Force. If the Force is relatively unknown, like, what the hell? Well, like, what's going on? Why would she tell him this? Why isn't she just some sort of eccentric, like, crazy ship dealer? Or, like, at all? Like, any major Darksiders would have if anyone claimed the title of Sith with other Darksiders on the world in the galaxy, they were hunted down by
Yeah,
both Sith and Jedi.
yeah, Palpatine definitely would have hunted her down.
Oh yeah, big time. And Snoke would have too, because
Well,
if she is really a Sith, she was a threat to her rule. If she's not a Sith and just a Force user out there, he would want her under his control.
Snoke was Palpatine.
That's I forgot how.
He was a
I
puppet
forgot
being remotely
just
controlled.
momentarily that J.J. Abrams was stupid. I apologize. I will not make that mistakes again. All right. Alana rolled her eyes. I need a hyperdrive coil. The Furies is on its last legs, and if I can't get a new one, I'm not going to be doing any more jumps now, am I? What? Is this supposed to be cutesy? Like, yeah, no. Why are we here? Not what I'll be stuck on this backwater forever. I'll be stuck on this backwater for longer than I want to be. Trey snorted and looked back down at this scrap, trying to scrub the dirt off a capacitor. One stranded Sith? Sounds like the galaxy's already in a better place. Oh, sounds like the galaxy's already a better place. He looked back down at his junk pile and continued sorting through it. I bypassed the compressor. Well, that's where things get bad for you, Treg. Alana smirked. Because a stranded Sith hanging around your outpost is pretty bad for business. I mean, with all this sensitive equipment, it would be terrible. Well, if there was an accident. If there was a. She extended her finger, and a jolt of force lightning sapped a few small components, causing them to spark and explode. An accident. Okay. So this is already a problem. Number one, Sith could and would use force to get what they wanted. But why break his shit when you can just break him? Be like, if you fuck with, be like, here, I'm just gonna shock you until you scream, and then when I'm done, you're going to give me what I want, and if not, I'll shock you again. And either you'll end up dying, which means nothing to me because I don't care, and I'll walk away with the hyperdrive coil, or you give me the hyperdrive coil, continue to live, and then I'll come back and do this again and play this game again. And then the next time I come back, you're going to give me whatever I want because, as you know, the consequences of not doing what I want. But that assumes that Sith are at the peak of their power. Like this is Sith. That scenario I described was Sith Empire days. Like Darth Bane and other Darths of the Rule of Two era probably wouldn't have done that. I don't think so. Rey seemed to do that sort of unknowingly. Also, yes, why wouldn't she steal the part? Joe is correct. Presumably because the part she needs is owned by a small business owner, and he's one of the, poor, quote unquote, and not the oppressive and evil Hutts, I guess. So stealing from him would be wrong. But she just blatantly used the Force out in the open in an era where the Force was mythical, if not, utterly extinct, and where no doubt Snoke, Kylo Ren, anyone in the New Republic would have all more than likely heard about it. Because this guy's not going to be, quiet. It just after she did this. Why would he? He's going to go get drunk at the nearest cantina and complain to his friends, and they're going to complain to their friends about how this bitch fried a bunch of his stuff, blew it up, and meant he got shorted that day on pay. She's made a whole new issue for herself by breaking his stuff and thus robbing him of income rather than just either A, stealing the part, or B, torturing him until he gave her what she wanted. Treg growled at her, but didn't retaliate. He'd learned the hard way not to cross Alana, when she needed something. Okay, so you've already at some point forced him to do, like, forced him, or force choked, or you have done something to cause this man harm. Why aren't you doing it again? Be like, oh, that's too bad. I guess I guess it's, I guess you've forgotten the last time you, like, tried to pull this shit on me. Hey, here, let me give you a reminder. Shock. Not only is it menacing, but it very much, it reinforces the idea that Alana is it very much reinforces this idea that Alana is A, probably not a good person, but B, he is very much in control of this situation. And anything Tira, any, like, the interaction Tira has with her is merely that of formality. See, this whole thing could be used to set up Alana's character, but it's not. Lily's moral look. Lily's moral compass is a roulette wheel. Look, even if I wanted to help you, I don't have a hyperdrive coil. You're just gonna have to look around and see if a scavenger is feeling generous. Okay, why didn't you open with that? You knew what you wanted. You knew what you wanted. All you had to do, instead of mocking her and possibly risking your life, would be like, even sorry, no luck today. Hey, I don't even have a hyperdrive. I don't have that. Sorry, don't have it in stock. And in that case, another moment to set up Alana's character would be her, like, reacting to that news. This is a resource curse, and if he has failed in this task, what other task could he fail at? Do I need to cut him loose? That sort of thinking, that, down low, dirty, I don't care who I hurt to get to the top kind of thinking. That's pure distilled Sith right there. And yet we're just blowing up a little bit of electronics and being told to fuck off, basically. Alana looked around the outpost, grungy, dirty, and the perfect picture to go along the word rust heap. The scavengers in Nima outpost didn't fare very well. The huts kept them busy tearing apart crashed ships for scraps of rations, and those that didn't die in the desert always looked like they were close to keeling over from sheer exhaustion and hunger. This didn't mean that scavengers could be easily bought. More so than the huts. Whoa, hold on. This didn't mean scavengers could be easily bought. More so than the huts? Are the huts? I guess the huts are expensive to buy. This is weird. Weird sentence here. Why? Why here? Why here? Why is this here? A good full meal and a few free ration packs, and most of the scavengers would gladly part with anything. On more than one occasion, Alana had managed to get a hold of expensive parts for her ship simply by giving us food to last them a few weeks. A few years ago, in fact, when she was just a teenager, Alana had come to Jakku with her mother and spent most of the day with a very young and very distraught looking scavenger who seemed to struggle to pull parts off a down speeder. It was probably one of the only times during those days Alana had risked drawing her lightsaber on a planet as she sliced parts off the speeder and handed them to the girl. She'd even left a small plasma torch to cut parts off herself when it was time to leave. It was a nice time. Okay, I haven't read that far into this. I'm going to guess that this tiny girl, a very young and very distraught looking scavenger, is going to be Rey. That's prediction 1. And the plasma torch is going to be how Alana figures out. But B, again, Why did this young scavenger not tell everybody of the amazing lightsaber wielder who helped her get all this speeder stuff? Oh, right. That girl had apparently died of starvation after too many unproductive days. I don't buy it, but okay.
Unproductive
Sighing,
days.
Alana stood. What?
Or unproductive days.
That's a
What's there
good
to do on
question.
a desert planet?
That's a good question. What, like, it basically this is what you do for survival, well, like to receive food, which means that you don't like to be unproductive means you don't get food. So if she was just not going anywhere, was she just stuck in the outpost? Like what happened? S- Sighing, Alana stood up and made her way to the concession area, hoping to find someone willing to trade a hyperdrive coil or who even had one. 2 hours into her. Okay, so there's a page break here, but why?
I guess it was. You said it was like copy and paste.
Do what?
Said this was a copy and paste.
No.
Oh, I thought that.
No, this right here, this line is indicating like a page break.
I mean,
So
maybe the page break is in the original or Lily Orchard's original writing.
maybe.
I mean, this is off an archive website, right?
Yeah. Well, Archive of Our Own is like it's a fan fiction story type.
Oh, I thought this was like an archiving website.
No.
Okay, never mind. Then I
Uh
guess Lily is just pretentious. Or maybe it's supposed to be like a scene transition.
I guess that could be it. Two
Like
hours into her search.
I do something similar to that in my writing to indicate like
Mhm.
two different periods of time.
2 hours into her search, and already she was in luck. Alana was certain she'd be on Jakku, shaking down scavengers for the better part of a week. A young human girl was standing in the lineup to turn in her scrap, and on the tray she was dragging was a hyperdrive coil. The Sith eyed the girl curiously as she kept looking around the concession area, as if trying to keep tags on every single person walking around. It was odd behavior, Alana thought. It it seemed as though the scavengers on Jakku kept their hands to themselves and didn't try to steal each other's scraps. Yeah, that's a good point. So what is she doing? Alano had to admit that for a scavenger who was covered in dirt, sweat, and grime, she was exceptionally pretty. Because it's Ray. Her hair was tied back in tight buns, and her tunic was tied in a very flattering fashion around her. Alana's eyes trailed down to her arms, noticing how firm and tough toned they were. Hauling parts all day, every day would certainly make someone quite strong. Alana was almost sure the girl could lift her easily if she tried. Remember, Lily Orchard is a lesbian.
Well, trans lesbian.
Yes,
I assume Aliana is going to be the top in the relationship.
I have no idea, and I don't particularly care to find out either. I know they get together eventually, but this is rated T, so hopefully there's not an explicit scene. She didn't approach. She usually didn't approach. Okay. So, again, quirk, this stupid thing she does. Like this. She didn't approach. She didn't usually approach. Like Lily, you've already said she didn't approach. We already know she's not going to approach Ray. He, but this was like the reason she usually didn't approach scavengers until they were offered a meager price by Unkar Plut, so she could swoop in with a much better offer. So here, Where is she? So this is enough. This is enough to open the paragraph. She counted herself lucky that the scavengers dealt in ration packs because she was always stocked with to the teeth with them. They were quick, cheap, and came in handy if you were stranded on a planet waiting to fix your ship. She had learned the hard way to always keep a large stock on the Fury. It was almost laughable that the Hutts shortchanged the scavengers so heavily because the ration packs that cost less credits to make. Alana could spend a few hundred credits and simply destroy the Hutt's entire operation if she wanted to. Hey, but if she's so noble, why hasn't she? Very clearly, she was noble enough as a Sith to. Yeah, Legacy. It's not very fun. Like, if she's noble enough as a Sith to help this strange girl who she gains nothing out of helping, then why isn't she noble? Then why isn't she noble enough to just spend a few hundred credits? Like, oh, this is a few hundred credits. I'll more than make up for it than by possibly getting an entire information network within the ranks of the Hutts. You know, these people I very much hate. At least I can guess Alana hates them based upon how much she rants about them in her own head, I assume. But she doesn't. uh, okay. Jakku was a scam of the highest caliber. Or the Hutts rake in money from salvage parts, and the scavengers were forced to beg for less than crumbs. Where she, in a better position, would do something about it, she'd have had Plutt's head mounted on the front of the Fury by now. Okay, but a few hundred credits is what you said you need. Are you not like capable of getting that? I mean, I guess given how frugal this woman is, I would guess that she probably isn't wealthy. But she's very clearly wealthy enough to keep a large stack of to maintain and fuel that ship she has, which probably doesn't take the same kind of fuel that most starships nowadays have of the current age have. So she's got to pay for that, which has got to be expensive because really, he, keeping and maintaining that kind of thing is a lot. But did her mother leave nothing? Like, what is she just? Is she descended from the rule of two Sith? Because like like that whole thing where Palpatine. There's a whole important thing where Darth Bane sort of wiped out all the other ones very intentionally, and then throughout history, if anyone rose from the dark side, they were either used by the Sith or killed if they got too powerful. Like, I'm sorry, he was there not, something along the lines of say, hey, so how was she trained in the dark side in the Force? How does she do that? How do hopefully we get answers to these questions. The girl had finally approached the counter and hefted the hyperdrive coil up for Plutt to see. Plutt looked it over, frowned before offering Agor half a portion of a ration pack for the coil and everything else on her cart. Now was her chance. Excuse me, she called out to the girl, who turned to her with a startled look on her face. I'll offer you a better deal for your hyperdrive coil. And what sort of deal is that? The girl asked, looking at her suspiciously. Alana couldn't deny that the girl was strikingly beautiful. Soft features, striking brown eyes, hair that looked much too soft for the climate she lived in, despite being mostly tied back. In the brief moment Alana took to gander, a cheesy line regarding desert jewels entered her mind.
You
She
know,
internally slapped herself for being distracted and refocused her attention.
I just came to this big realization. How come how come Luke and Ray don't have tan skin? Since they grew up on a desert planet. I just
I
now thought
think
of that.
Luke in most of his scenes in Tatooine is pretty tan-ish. He looks relatively tan. And he's no paler than anybody else, around him. Like like his Aunt Peru, Uncle Owen, they don't have like the sun damaged skin or anything. Obi-Wan doesn't have the sun damaged skin either. Although the canon explanation is basically like Obi-Wan stayed on Tatooine and like was kept up with his training. He was very much like Darth Vader in their duel from a narrative in the movie it doesn't look like much, but from a narrative perspective, like written out, the duel played out much like their duel on uh like it was even worse for Darth Vader. Like he had to put in effort to beat Obi-Wan.
Wait, which duel is this?
Their duel on the Death Star.
Oh, okay.
Like supposedly if in the um novel version of A New Hope, like it's supposed to be that when old Ben Kenobi confronts Darth Vader, Darth Vader is like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to put in some effort here."
Yeah, and then the new Obi-Wan series is gonna mess that shit up.
Of course they are.
Let's have them fight several more times.
Yeah. A f-
Yeah, it's like what it's a, yeah, be like it's just like last time we fought, I was the learner, now I'm the master. And Obi-Wan's like, dude, we just fought like 2 weeks ago. What are you
I
talking
know,
about?
right?
And the same could also be applied to Revenge of the Sith and Clone Wars, since they had Anakin fight Dooku multiple times. Actually, and also Obi-Wan fight General Grievous multiple times, even though Revenge of the Sith seemed to imply that was their first time dueling.
Yeah,
Like, I was trained in your Jedi. I was trained in your Jedi arts by Count Dooku. Yeah, I know. I fought you several times. I kind of figured that out.
yeah, that's one of the things that doesn't really age well about TCW is that it sort of fucks with things in Revenge of the Sith. But eh, the line Anakin says to Dooku could make sense with their duels in Revenge of this in TCW. But but really even the comics fuck with that cuz in the T in like even like in the old stuff and in the new stuff, General Grievous and Kenobi have both like confronted each other on more than one occasion. So I think we just have to take that with a sort of ex necessary exposition as to why General Grievous wields lightsabers in in the Revenge of the Sith movie instead of, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway, I'll feed you a proper meal and give you 14 double ration packs. All I ask in return is the coil for you to come install it in my ship and your name. And the girl's eyes went wide. That's an entire month's worth of food. I really need that coil, and I'm not so good with the mechanics, with the machines. Deal, the girl said excitedly, holding out her hand. My name's Ray. You got a last name, Ray? Alana asked, taking her hand and shaking it. Okay. Tired. eh, for I was okay with it, Joe. And I'll tell you why. Yes, we're using our made-up names. Human's Legacy. So let me tell you why I liked that move. Because over the course of the two movies and the entire TCW series, it very much became clear that the clones and the Jedi viewed each other as, partners, at least within the upper brass. So it was hard for me to sort of reconcile that in the early days. It was hard for me to reconcile that with what Revenge of the Shish sowed, which was like these are just guys that these are soldiers and they followed orders. But why this has been going on, and these people have fought and shed blood together, and seen death and lost people. Like there was loss, and for some, I get it. For like Kit Fisto, no, not Kit Fisto, Kiadimundi, Luminar Unduli, these are people that these are both Jedi that were very much orthodox and did not care about their soldiers. But for Aayla Secura, and many other Jedi, they bonded with these men and they viewed them as people, as individuals. So it was sort of hard for me to reconcile the idea that after going through all that crap, like slogs, sieges, his planet-wide invasions, death, destruction, the horrors of war, it was hard for me to see why any soldier would do that and not be like, "Oh, this guy's this is probably not what we should do," you know. But in TCW, with the introduction of the chip, it was like, oh, it was pre-programmed. So basically, they had a pre-programmed kill switch. So I liked that move in TCW, and you can disagree with me because all of that's just basically my opinion and in my interpretation of what should have happened. Where were we? You got a last name, Ray? Something in Ray's eyes went dark at the question. Alana realized she must have touched a nerve. I don't know what it is.
All right then, Ray Solo.
Yes, you will be called Solo. Because why not? Fucking name. They came up with a backstory for his fucking name.
But yeah,
And then
in the EU, sorry, Han actually came from a long line, right? The Solo
I don't
family was.
know. I don't know enough about the post Purge post Revenge of the Sith. I'd check out. Luke was never that interesting of a character to me, so I was just like, bye. These people are more interesting.
Wait, you mean Han?
Like, no, I just meant like the principal character that I would have probably followed would be Luke.
Oh,
And I think he is the main character in most of the early on, later, post, you know, Ray. um, after basically after the Return of the Jedi, I just didn't read any of the EU stuff because I got into the EU very late. Like I got into it probably 5 or 6 years before Disney bought out Lucasfilm and started, producing their own content. but I didn't read that like after Return of the Jedi EU. I always found the Old Republic more fascinating. So I don't know if Han has like that kind of backstory or not. But still. Are y'all bored, or did we get interrupted by an ad?
What are you talking about?
Just Joe Crazy just shouted Raid Shadow Legends.
Sorry, Joe. I have too much self-respect to plug Raid Shadow Legends.
Fair enough. I'm Alana. Oh, fair enough. Alana nodded, desperately looking to regain a favorable footing in the conversation. What? Did she? Oh, yeah, I guess. I'm Alana Benico. My ship is parked a mile out from the outpost. I have a speeder. Oh, you are my hero. Oh, as she followed Ray to the outer edge of the outpost. I was not looking forward to another walk through the desert. Why didn't you just park your ship on the landing pads with the others? Ray asked, looking back at Alana with confusion. She couldn't comprehend why someone would trudge an hour through the sand, someone wearing as much black as Alana was no less. Yes. My ship's design is too similar to the first order vessels. Last thing I need is a bunch of panicked scavengers hurling junk at me. Are you from the Confederacy? I'm independent. Jedi? Why would you think that? Ray only tilted her head towards Alana's waist where her lightsaber was hanging. Alana, with the speed of 1,000 rehearsals, replied, "No, that doesn't work. It's just a good bluff." She wasn't entirely certain why she was lying. She'd never lied the fact that she was Sith before, but something deep within her compelled her to conceal the truth this time. Smart. Ray smiled as the two mounted the speeder and took off towards the desert. Okay. Whew, that was a lot, but I wanted to finish that. So, in this interaction, we've had basically the reiteration of something we already know. Child, I will harm you. I'm talking to the cat. And no, I won't actually hurt him.
Oh, what's he doing this time?
He was clawing at the door. Like, okay, so so we have the repeated my ship's to first order, or I don't need people just throwing junk at me. Are you from the Confederacy? Ray asks, and says, Alana responds, no, I'm independent. And then Ray asks the Jedi. Ray didn't know who the Jedi were. Like, what's a Jedi? Like, Ray doesn't know what the Jedi and the Force are. Or, like, that's why she seeks out Luke in the first place. The fuck? Why would she think of a Jedi? She knew Han Solo because he smuggled. Because he was a legendary smuggler, not a, oh, I don't know, a war hero? Jesus, I can't think right now. And then she just lies. And she's like, why did I lie? I've never lied about the fact that I'm Sith before. But you should be lying about the fact that you're a Sith, so you don't die. What canon is this? Why is she able to just run about and wield the Force as if, as if without consequence? Presumably this takes place at the start of A New Hope, of The Force Awakens. So Luke's Jedi temple has fallen. So it's been 30 years since the return of the Jedi. Which means Luke's Jedi Order has risen and fallen, and the First Order have emerged from presumably the remnants of the Empire. Now, I can only guess, and based on the things that happen in the film, Rey wouldn't know about the Jedi. Why would she know about the Jedi? The Jedi were forgotten, basically erased by the Empire, or after, in like the first 5 years that the Empire existed. So when they were wiped out and Luke took over and destroyed Darth Vader and the rest of the Sith, Luke was the only Jedi. Now, in the EU, before Disney screwed with it, Luke created the Jedi Paraxium, helped fought Palpatine, fought and defeated Palpatine again, fought a clone of himself, and fought another Darksider who actually almost kicked his ass. That's Lumaya. Then the Yuuzhan Vong conflict came out, and eventually Luke dies of old age. But just somehow, Legacy and Joe Crazy got it right. Somehow, Rey knows what a Jedi is. At least enough to recognize a lightsaber. Rey almost couldn't believe her luck. The coil was quite a valuable find, and she had been incensed that Plutt would offer so little for such a valuable piece. She was about to curse him out for his general greed when this off-worlder had swooped in with a better deal, almost as if she was watching her and waiting. Okay. She had been. Why is this God damn it. Why is this here? This doesn't need to be here. We already know this. No, Ron. This is what we call Schadenfreude, which means I'm entertaining myself by causing all of you to suffer.
Welcome, Roni Harushin. Fuck. I've been pronouncing that wrong all this time. Fuck.
Like I said, Schadenfreude. Like, seriously, we already know this. This is information that has been communicated to us in like the past 2 paragraphs, nonetheless. Like, to be clear, it's taken us almost an hour to get through this, but normal speed, I would have hit this not very far, not very like not later than maybe a minute or so. Even if Ray hadn't seen her, she could practically feel the woman's eyes boring through her. And strangely enough, she was convinced that the stranger had been checking her out. Oh, she didn't know why she thought that. Ray is lesbian now. She just had a feeling about it. Ray is lesbian now.
Well, not yet.
I mean, no, not yet, but like, okay, so almost as if she was watching and waiting, which implies that Ray thinks this woman was watching her, but probably wasn't, but it could be coincidence to, oh, I definitely knew she was watching me and I felt like she was checking me out.
Yeah, this is like the start of a porno. Lesbian seduces straight girl.
Like she either is aware of Alana's stalking of her or she's not. And I very much wish that was cleared up. Like a simple read through probably would have like just again a simple read through would have been like, "Oh, that's weird. Why did I say that?" Oh. Whatever, Ray thought. For a month of food, this off-worlder could stare at her as much as she wanted. You value yourself, Ray. Value yourself. Little bit more than that, please. Like, I know you're a Mary Sue in your own series, but in this one, you're just sort of a toy. You're basically a doll for this depraved woman. Like, value yourself a little bit more. Admittedly, she'd been nervous when she finally saw the Fury. Alana hadn't been lying when she said it resembled First Order ships too much. In fact, to the untrained eye, the two would be one and the same. But Ray had dismantled the Imperial ships and First Order ships before, and this particular design was neither of their registers.
Wait, when did she dismantle First Order ships?
Who knows? Maybe they arrived there, but that would imply that it's a salvage planet, not a scavenging planet. Because if it's and there's an important difference. Like, there are planets purely dedicated to breaking down large ships to salvage their resources. Like, that's a thing. That's a thing in the Star Wars universe. Like, Jedi Fallen Order starts you on one of these planets. It's so if First Order ships that have been involved in battles, presumably with like local planetary naval forces, then that changes everything, which means there's a lot of value coming out of this planet, which means it probably wouldn't be a desert. It would be at least developed and owned by a corporation. Like, why wouldn't a corporation have seen that, like, all these ships are here, and then if we pipe in more ships, we can just take over, we can just buy, like, this continent of the planet, turn it into a giant salvage yard, and make billions. It, like, you go, why hasn't that been done? Should we be providing hostility and possibly violence too? But she now fully understood. Okay. That Alana's worry, landing too close to Nema outpost, she would be inviting hostility and possibly violence by doing so. Ray had expected the ship to come from some wait. Ray had expected the ship to come from some time before the Clone Wars, but after examining the hyperdrive and cringing at at the sheer age of many of its parts, it was clear it was considerably older than that. Based on the fuel converters alone, she concluded the Fury was 3,000 years old, and it was in terrible in terrible condition for a modern ship, but for a ship so old it was practically pristine. Unfortunately, it was also poorly maintained. Alana either wasn't the kind of person to maintain her ship or didn't know how. Considering how she mentioned that machines eluded her, the latter probably the most likely. Whew, that was a lot. All right, so we have Ray basically being like, "Oh, I expected this ship to be from before the Clone Wars." But nope. And then she's like, "This ship is 3,000 years old," which again begs the question, how would Ray know 3,000? How would she pin down 3,000 years without, examining, without being some sort of expert in like ships, which, she wasn't. Like, all we got was her stealing parts off the ship. Presumably she knows what parts are valuable because someone told her, likely Unco Blood, because he would have said, "This is worthless, this is worthless, this is worthless, this will get you food here." But nope, that's not it. It also, like, 3,000 years is a very like 3,000 years is kind of a specific range to narrow it down to. Like the level of detail about Rey's mechanical knowledge here is extremely unusual for what her character would actually know given her upbringing. Where exactly did you get this ship anyway? Rey asked as she slid under the hyperdrive generator. It's an old family heirloom, Alana said, sitting down on a crate and watching Rey work.
Okay, so this is after. Wait, this is after Rise of Skywalker now.
No, this is before.
Okay.
This takes place presumably on the timeline of the sequel trilogy. So this is taking place in place of this is basically Lily Pete's rewrite of The Force Awakens. Only with her Mary Sue character. So she can write herself in a relationship with Rey. So, excuse me. It's an old family heirloom, Alana said, sitting down on a crate and watching Rey work. Must be nice. Family not the bequeathing type? Alana asked, tilting her head.
So wait, is this the old Republic era ship?
Yes.
That's the heirloom. A 4,000-year-old ship.
Yes. A
Okay,
4,000-year-old ship.
so she's a descendant of from the old Republic era Sith Order.
One would have to assume.
Okay. Evidently Darth
And
Bane missed one.
okay, so let's go through the events that would have had to happen for this specific scenario to occur. This family line would have had to live through the fall of the empire, the fall of the last empire, or in the MMO. So the fall of that, go into hiding, avoid the Jedi purge that followed the fall of the empire, or of the dark side, like the Jedi purging of the dark side. Darksiders, other survivors of that purge are coming after them. Then they would have had to avoid Brotherhood. They would have had to early on pull out of the Brotherhood of Darkness, and then survive Lord Khan and everybody else sending people after them. Because remember, if you've ever read the Darth Bane series, Khan sent one of the best swordsmen he had after Bane because A, the man had trained him and knew more than him, and B, because Bane defied Khan and pulled away from the Brotherhood of Darkness, that thus weakening the inherent ideology of the Brotherhood of Darkness, which was every Darksider is equal. We are all equal. We are wielders of the dark side. So they would have had to survive that, plus Bane, who, if he thought there were Darksiders still left other than the Brotherhood of Darkness, he would have hunted them down and exterminated them, because because in his mind they would weaken the Sith, because they would inherently be rivals. Then this family line has to survive all of the rule of two Sith, remaining undetected entirely. Get through the fall of the Republic, the Jedi Purge, the rise of the Empire, or the Empire's 5-year hunt for Jedi, the and then the fall of the Empire, and more purging probably of Force users, all the way to get to this point with Alana. That's that's 3,000 years of history right there that this ship has to have survived. Let's so this thing was a combat fighter. So this ship had to survive not only one war but multiple wars, multiple purges, and just never be detected. This ship is a walking gravity field of horror and understanding nothing of of Star Wars greater canon. One moment, my cat wants to go out. All right, I'm back. You got to shake it hard to make sure all the branches fall. Must be nice, Ray said somewhat bitterly. Family not the bequeathing type? Alana asked, tilting her head. I don't know, her voice hitching slightly. I'll have to ask them when they come back. When might that be? I don't know. Never knew them? How'd you guess? Lack of a last name tipped me off, Alana said, getting off the crate and sitting down beside her as she worked. So how'd you end up on Jakku? Yes, Joe. All of that. That ship has to survive all of that. Not just this entire family line. So how'd you end up on Jakku? If it's all the same to you, I'd rather not recite my life story to a stranger. Ray huffed as she kicked a Hydra spanner towards herself. I'd rather just do the job you're paying me to. Okay. Okay. I guess kicking a Hydra spanner towards herself is something. Ray could hear Alana fall quiet and then get up and leave. She was glad to have some quiet, but she could feel something, like a wave of disappointment, had washed over her. She slid out from under the hyperdrive, just in time to see Alana round the corner looking at the floor. What an odd woman, she muttered, sliding back under the hyperdrive. So this is what Alana looks like, by the way.
She dresses like that in the desert.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why is Ray just covered in freckles?
Because freckles are cute.
Ugh. All in all, this was a productive day for Alana. Her ship was fixed in record time, and the hyperdrive was purring like a kitten. Okay, whatever. This Ray, he had quite a knack for ships, and Alana had barely finished cooking when she came in saying she was finished. The girl had even fine-tuned the hyperdrive and cleaned out most of its parts for good measure, and Alana was convinced she'd just been given a rare blessing by the Force. Okay. As she set a plate down in front of her, Alana took in the scavenger's appearance. She was smeared with engine grease, and her hair had come free from its knots in places. Alana had never found the mechanic look particularly attractive before, but she was finding herself unable to take her eyes off Ray. Okay, I need to pause for a moment because that was a lot. So again, I have the question of why Alana has gone through all this instead of, just having Ray, just having Alana, force Rey to do it, and then kill her when she's done because she doesn't care about her. So Alana's not a Sith, very clearly. Also, lesbians. They're lesbians. Remember, they're lesbians. One can hope there will be more cowbell at some point. I think we're almost done with the chapter, though. As she set a plate down in front of her. Oh, so. Alana blinked, having caught herself becoming distracted by the pretty girl yet again. I'll have your ration packs ready after you've eaten, she said, sitting down in front of her. Thank you, Ray nodded before taking a bite. Taking a bite before freezing in place. Wow, this is delicious. You made this? Before Alana could respond, a robotic voice chimed in. Okay, hold on. Sorry, I was reading chat for a moment. I mean, given that she gave her character a 3,000-year-old ship, probably because she just saw a picture of it and liked the design, or or was um like saw the design on the Fury in the MMO and was like, yeah, that's gonna be her ship. All right. Before Alana could respond, a robotic voice chimed in. Darth Omarosa is quite the experienced chef indeed. Alana whirled around to see her least favorite stowaway, 2VR8, a protocol droid that came with the ship and was likely just as old. She kept the droid around because without him she wouldn't have been able to run the ship, and after 10 years with nobody else around, 2V he had become the closest thing to family she had. For all his irritations, she loved the droid. Okay.
Oh boy, this part.
Yes, this.
Okay, I guess for starters, why the fuck would this droid call her Darth Omarosa? I mean, I believe it's a protocol droid, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So if he's a robot butler, so it'd be more appropriate to call her Lady Omarosa. Not to mention the fact that people don't normally call Sith by the Darth title if the Sith have like an authority figure over
Like
them.
exactly. It's sort of like referring to it would be like you working for the Queen of England and referring to her always as your my queen instead of your ladyship or your excellency or yes my lady. He, instead of like Darth is a title, but you would still call Darth Vader yes my lord. Like you see it in the movies. Like yes, his name is Darth Vader, but Darth is his title. Well, you don't constantly refer to someone in person as their title. Why isn't she Lady Amorosa?
And this is still before Force Awakens.
This is the Force Awakens. This is the basically this is the rewrite of it. This is Lily's rewrite. So this scene, I I think given how it ends, I think this scene takes place before BB-8 and Poe land on the ship, land on the dunes.
And is Rey familiar with the Sith?
I wouldn't think so. Why would she be? So, all right, we were here. Oh, nope. No, we were here. Okay. Alas, she should have known it would have jumped at the chance to praise her whenever the opportunity arose. Ray almost choked on her next mouthful at the droid's words. I'm sorry, Darth Omarosa? Why do you know about them? Why do you know about the Darth title? Like no one in the sequel trilogy has a title. Like Snoke is not Darth Snoke. He is just Snoke. Oh, Kylo Ren isn't a Darth either. He's just Lord Ren, I think, is his only reference. So they're never given a title. So why would Rey be familiar with it? Thinking quickly, Alana put on an annoyed face and looked at the droid. Damn thing's got a faulty memory core. Keeps getting me mixed up with one of its previous masters. Previous master? The droid is old, and Alana lied. About as old as the ship. How is the droid still functioning? Eventually operating systems do cease to function. They cease to work on, newer things. And this droid would have required maintenance to keep going for 4,000 years. So I hesitate to say, like, what the fuck? How is this thing still functioning? Like, it wouldn't surprise me it would have a memory core issue. To store 4,000 years of memories and masters and orders and like what person likes this and how to speak 500 different languages, all of which have evolved over 4,000 years. There's changed and shifted, and things that are now that were cool to say are now no longer cool to say, and like, whew, there's a lot wrong with that idea. The droid is old, about as old as the ship. They weren't always family heirlooms, and I guess they used to belong to a Sith named Amarosa at some point. And that was when the droid's memory core started to experience issues. That's my best guess, and sadly I can never find compatible parts for him. It wasn't completely a lie. The ship was old, as was 2VR8, but Alana's family had managed to keep him in reasonably good condition. She was hoping that it was convincing enough to keep Ray from pressing for more details. Oh my, have I offended Master? I'm ever so sorry. My name is Alana. Now get out of here. 2VR8 left without a word, and Ray shrugged and continued eating. Ray, sweetheart, if okay, so for the record, Ray has seen her lightsaber. So she knows this woman is not a Jedi. Then a protocol droid has come in and addressed her as Darth. That then turned that she didn't then Ray did not immediately turn and go, "You're a Sith." And Alana immediately turned and was like, "It's a memory issue." Oh, the ship and the droid are old. They just have memory issues. There's a point where lying becomes utterly pointless. This is it. Why in any world would Ray believe this woman? Because she already has the ability. We very clearly see earlier that Ray has the ability to put two and two together. Like old parts, old parts, old fuel converters, must be old ship. The 3,000 years thing was a stretch, but I'll buy that. But very clearly she's putting things together by evidence. So let's see. Lightsaber, not Jedi. Lightsaber, not Jedi. Addressed by Darth title. Must be Darth. Or at least something. But she said the lightsaber didn't work. She could be lying. She could be lying. Do I care? Probably not. 2VR8 left without another word, and Ray shrugged and continued eating. She was no stranger to faulty droids, and older droids had a hard time with names and identities, so she thought nothing else of it. Way to attempt to explain away your own plot hole. If the droid was old as the ship, they both likely had a long history of previous owners. I agree, Joe Crazy. Internally, Alana let out a massive sigh of relief. While she wasn't particularly choosy about who she let in on the knowledge of who she was, in fact, she privately announced herself as the Dark Lady of the Sith at times, she was still cautious with first impressions. She was quite frankly, lucky that Trey has not seen fit to out her to the rest of the outpost. It only ever caused problems for her and alienated people she needed to stay on good terms with. She once again she once made the mistake of answering a hail with her Sith name and had been chased across half the galaxy by a resistance frigate for a month straight. She shuddered at the memory. It was the closest she'd come to being blasted into space, and she was still nervous around resistant ships to this day. Okay. So you have encountered people who are actively and openly hostile to you, to the point of sending a rather large ship, burning resources to chase down this singular person for a month. And let's not forget, the whole point of the resistance existence in the first place is to combat the First Order, which means they need to be, you know, dedicated, like written, being dedicated to that chase for a month straight. So she's encountered the resistance, and she's encountered people on more than one occasion that have sort of attacked her, but she's still just openly prancing about like, I'm a Sith, I'm a Sith, I'm a Sith. Jesus. Like, you didn't have to go this far to fill this plot hole that you dug for yourself. Like, if you just hadn't had her be, I'm a Sith. I'm out and proud and I'm a Sith. Nevertheless, her caution only extended so far. If she was going to be killed for being a Sith, then she'd face such a death without fear. But there was something about this girl. Hold on. Is Lily Pete trying to equate being a Sith with being like trans or queer? That's kind of what it feels like. Like, do
I
you get
don't
that vibe
know.
as well?
I don't know. It's really weird how a lot of these like LGBT activists will latch on to villains, and then they
Yeah.
freak out when like Pennywise and Michael Myers kill gay couples, and like, oh no, they're not gay allies. I'm like, oh really? The s- the psychopathic serial killers are not good people. Imagine my shock. The people who kill indiscriminately.
Initially, Alana had planned to smooth talk Ray into bed with her for the night and send her off in the morning.
Wait,
She'd done it
what?
so much. I feel like this line leads to an entirely different fic.
Oh, yeah, that's no kidding. Got like a little lightsaber vibrator.
She'd done it so many times it was practically second nature, but but the more they spoke, the more uneasy she felt about it. It was as if, now that she'd gotten to know her, she didn't just want to sleep with her and throw her out the door. That was part of the reason she concealed her identity. The more they talked, the more she liked this girl.
Okay. Wait, she didn't want to she didn't want to take her to bed because they had a good conversation.
Apparently.
So I'm curious how things go with with other women she brings onto the ship. I'm not
That
trying to. I ain't
that is a
saying
very
she.
good question.
Not saying she's a rapist, but I'm kind of implying it.
But still, we had a good talk.
Really, would that mean all the more reason to bed with her?
I
More
want
of
to
it.
see. Legacy, if that's an article, I, I will find it. I will find it because that is something we would need to address.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that with the new Venom movie that they tried to. I guess they tried to. I think in the movie, the Venom symbiote kind of jokingly calls them a couple, or him and Eddie Brock a couple, but it's meant to be more like a joke. But then I think Andy Serkis actually came out and said that it is actually a gay allegory. I don't remember all the details.
Oh fuck! How? I d-
Yeah,
okay, so we'll
but
have to find out about that. That's
yeah,
definitely something we'll have to we'll have to look into.
yeah. Speaking of
Um,
speaking of Venom, just
I'm trying not to
oh,
think about it, Joe.
yeah. Speaking of Venom, just another thing I've been wondering for a long time is how the fuck is like you know like the Venom symbiote is actually like an entire fetish genre.
Yes.
How I don't understand how that is like I've
Look,
seen like drawings of like women being covered in the Venom or Carnage symbiotes. I
I
don't
don't
see it.
have we don't have the time. We want to finish this chapter before midnight, so we don't have the time for me to explain this to you.
Fine, be that
Just
way.
rule 34. Just rule 34 is what you should enter the internet porn space with. If it exists, there is porn of it. So just there you go. Anyway, so what do you do? Alana jolted as she was pulled from her thoughts. Hudson momentarily blanked. I do a little bit of everything. Really, mercenary, bounty hunting, deliveries, wet work, anything I could do to get by, really. Okay, so she's a mercenary for hire. She's a bounty hunter. A smuggler, I assume, is what she means by this, and an assassin. How is she alive?
Looks like Ray's not the only Mary Sue around.
I guess.
A little, yeah, and a one bounty hunter and assassin all kind of fall under the mercenary category.
Kinda. In most sci-fi settings, a bounty hunter is generally considered a mercenary. You could put them under the same umbrella. The smuggling would be different, but mercenary work, bounty hunting, and wet work all would fall under just general mercenary. Excellent work, Joe. We got him because that's actually really good. I had not put much thought into that statement, and yet that was probably going to be my week when I found the article Legacy mentioned. I do a little. Okay, so oh, Ray choked again, dropping her plate onto the seat beside her and pounded her fist against her chest. Wet work? Okay, Ray, what do you know what wet work is? Like, why would you have come across such an odd phrase for assassination. Like, such a very, very specific, sort of clean phrase for assassination. Why would you have known that? What circumstances led you to this knowledge? All my targets are first order. The Republic SIS has a lot of people out there picking off stormtroopers and officers. They actually have a bounty out on Kylo Ren, but not a lot of people try to take that job. Why not? Ray asked, sitting forward. She was always interested in news from the galaxy, especially regarding the latest galactic war. Uh, why does Ray care? Shouldn't she be, yeah. So, which is why I'm not super up in arms about it. It makes sense. It makes sense that the Republic would probably have someone out there trying to take down this threat. Which is why the fact that the Resistance isn't the Republic is kind of confusing. Because clearly the Resistance exists. But the Republic also exists. So the Resistance isn't the Republic. Oh dear. It seems that Lilly is not going to correct that major mistake in the sequel trilogy. Okay. Okay. We do. Okay. Why not? Ray asked, sitting forward. Ren's a dark Jedi, Alana explained. With the Force and a working lightsaber, you're a dangerous target. Back during the Clone Wars, Jedi became famous for being one-man armies that left trails of bodies in their wake. Yeah, like we're assuming that this is not the Rey of the movies anymore. It has to. It has to not be. So for now, we shall call her May. So, like,
Yeah, if by trail of bodies you mean droids, then yeah.
well, I mean, there were other species that went to war, like the Geonosians, that they were.
Yeah, but most of the kill count was droids.
Fair
Like
enough. Yeah.
that was like the vast majority of the army.
hmm I thought the Jedi were guardians of peace. Again, how does Rey like?
Yeah, like does she even know that the Jedi even exist in the movies? Like I know she thinks Luke Skywalker is a myth.
Yeah, like she did. She doesn't know who Luke Skywalker is. Like, I thought the Jedi were guardians of peace. Why are they leaving bodies? How do you think that you? How do you think you guard peace? A lightsaber isn't meant to be a flashlight. I mean, yes. Thank you, Lana, for basically explaining why. Well, I mean, yeah, I agree with that. Ray thought about Alana's question for a moment and then nodded. She wanted to argue, but couldn't really think of how one was supposed to be a guardian of peace during wartime other than to win said war. So have you met any Jedi in your travels? Alana had to resist the urge to bristle at the question. Br- the brushing a strand of thick, wavy brown hair out of her face, she put on a face of indifference. Repeat. Can't say I have, she said. They were all wiped out after the First Order started to rise up. Ray narrowed her eyes slightly. For whatever reason, she didn't feel satisfied with Alana's answer, or rather, unconvinced. It's just she started. You seem to know a lot about them. Uh, where has they were a thing, but nothing specific. I agree, Joe. And well, like what? Where was it? There's the repeat. By what evidence? Like just pass. These were like passing. This is just passing knowledge. What do you mean you know a lot about them? Why would she conclude that? I'm well read. How much? It was Alana's turn to narrow her eyes at Ray. You pressed me on this right after saying you'd rather not recite your life story to a total stranger. What? What do you mean? She's asking about she's asking to continue the conversation. Why are you just shutting it down? What the fuck? Just here. This is like this is I have knowledge. I have this knowledge. She was like, "How do you have this knowledge?" I'm well read. Like, okay, how much do you know? Tell me. I'm interested. I wish to continue this conversation because I find this topic fascinating. We have something in common. And then Alana's just like, nah, this coming from the girl who was like, hey, I'd rather not recite your life story. Yeah. Ray felt her next words die in her mouth as she looked down on the plate and she said, fair enough. Oh, I'm guessing this should be set instead of said. I don't think that's intentional. Alana felt a slight twinge of guilt at Ray's rather deflated expression. Did you want seconds? Before you go. Ray's face looked right back up. Oh, yes, please. I mean, so long as you're offering, I wouldn't want to impose. Alana smiled. No imposition at all. I'll be right back, she said, making her way up back to the kitchen. Okay, so Ray, this girl was just like super rude and snobbish to you, and you're just like, nah, I wanna eat more. I guess you could excuse it by saying Ray doesn't really know what table manners are and is used to people treating her kind of like crap. So, but that doesn't reflect very well on Ray, now does it? When she returned, the two continued to talk as they ate. Topics ranged from the First Order to ways to upgrade the Fury to be a more reliable modern ship. As they spoke, Alana found herself quite liking Ray. We already knew that. She said she liked her like 2 pages ago, like 2 paragraphs ago. It was rare she got to converse with someone on such a personal level. Well, where it almost seems again. Oh, okay, I guess that's a typo. Where it almost seemed like they were friends. Usually, it was potential employers and security she mostly spoke to. Maz Kanata maybe, Maz Kanata maybe, but that old pirate seemed more like an elder than anything else. So we know who Maz Kanata. So she knows who Maz Kanata is. Hooray for her!
Does Maz know she's a Sith?
I I would assume so, given how flagrantly she throws the title around.
And not to mention that Maz is force sensitive,
Y-
so
At
she
least
could sense the dark
to,
side in her.
to some extent, yeah. Like I don't understand why Maz Kanata is being brought up.
Remember Star Wars?
1 second. I'm gonna grab a drink.
All right, so how are y'all doing? And never mind, he's back.
Yes, I'm back. I agree. I suppose not. I mean, if she's having to replace a hyperdrive coil every minute, and if the pieces are, you know, ugh. Sorry, the way my headset was resting on my head was hurting me. Uh, like nobody thought to say like, hey, let's upgrade this. Let's make it a modern ship. I guess. Ray was like Alana's polar opposite in every possible way. A gearhead, where Alana was a scholar. A scavenger, where Alana was a freelancer. About the only thing they had in common was the fact that Alana could sense the Force, was strong with Ray. Sadly, she couldn't broach the topic without revealing herself. Okay, so I guess opposites track kind of thing that we're supposed to buy into.
Yeah, in real life, has it ever led to a successful relationship that was long lasting?
I don't know. I suppose you could try and do a study on it. There might be one out there, but I just don't really know.
I don't know. I just kind of think that they need to have something in common to have a successful relationship.
Well, the thing they have in common and is that they're both force sensitive.
Ooh,
When Ray finally packed up her things to leave, Alana had handed her a container filled with double ration packs. She didn't tell her, but Alana had actually put 30 packs into the container, or rather than the 14 they had agreed upon. They shook hands, and Alana stood on the ramp, limp of the fury, as she watched Ray speed off back into the desert. Alana remained on the ramp long after Ray had gotten out of sight, mulling over the day. It had been nice to have Ray around for the last few hours, and she quietly hoped that if she ever came back to Jakku, she would see her again. Ray had been helpful, talkative, friendly, and Alana was embarrassed to admit that she couldn't take her eyes off her. She was almost certain Ray would have caught her blushing if her skin was light enough to show. They're lesbians. Or, well, our main character is a lesbian. You got it? You sure? We might need to beat you over the head with it again. She's a lesbian. I mean, one already knows the other. One doesn't know she's force sensitive, and the other one knows the other one's force sensitive. Like, it could be an explosive fucking relationship. I'll give you that, but I think, just one not knowing makes that timer pretty long. Sighing, she turned to go back inside and prep the ship for launch, when a sudden wave of terror, hatred, and death washed over her. She was so overwhelmed by it that she fell to her knees on the ramp. Then, as quickly as it had come, it vanished. Alana recognized it instantly. She'd felt the murder of a lot of people coming from that direction of Tuanal, the village that worshipped the Force, and were always trying to rebuild the Jedi. Alana had always tried to stay clear of the village. She would never have assumed she would be welcome around people who allied themselves with the Jedi, as much as she was always curious about the village's people.
gee, I wonder why.
Yeah, it's almost like being a Sith is a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not like the Sith and the Jedi have been at war for thousands of
Millennia.
years,
Yeah.
and then the Sith led the Jedi to near extinction.
Those sacred Jedi texts aren't so sacred. Clearly this village got a hold of one of them at least. Getting to her feet, Alana hurried inside, prepped the Fury for launch. Deadeye cult or no, she wasn't about to just ignore what she'd felt. Why? Like, but why? What do you care? You're just, what do you care? Like, you're a Sith. It's not affecting you. It's not going to ruin any of your plans. Don't involve this puny planet. So what the fuck does it matter if someone genocided someone else? Who cares? I got what I want. Bye, bitches.
Yeah, that's something I've that's something about this entire fanfic is the idea that pushing the idea that Sith can potentially be good guys. I mean, just I mean, this is just kind of straight out of the mouth of George Lucas. The Sith are selfish by nature.
Yeah, they're
They
self.
only they act in their own self interest.
They do. They always do. And that's the thing and that's the reason, you know, legacy, no. By the way, just on a tangent real quick. So, apparently in the Boba Fett series, I'm guessing either it was a comic or the new Boba Fett series. Boba Fett learns that in ancient times, Tatooine was very, very lush and like not a desert. And the Tusken Raiders and Jawas, which were one species at the time, were invaded by an outside force, and they chose to glass their planet to deny them their resources. And stupid as that is, I thought that was some big dick energy. Since Legacy brought up Tusken lives and how they matter.
But that's stupid.
Yes, it is.
What? Why would? I'm at a
Uh,
loss for words. That's just
It's
dumb.
it's stupid. It's dumb as fuck. But big dick energy though.
Yeah, more like dumb dick energy.
No, 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 no. Big dick energy isn't about being smart or dumb. Being big dick energy is just being big dick energy.
You turn your entire planet into a. D-
Yes. Just saying fuck you and the horse you rode in on to this invading force.
Okay, well, and the invader's like, okay, we're gonna share you our resources. We're gonna do some trading. You give us some furs, we'll give you some weapons, that kind of stuff.
No, I'm pretty sure. Like, I'm not sure how, like, the specific details.
Then
So,
again, this is Disney canon. It's all about the land stealing.
mm,
I just, I mean, in the old EU was Tatooine once a not desert planet.
probably, but at that time would have long since passed. Just as the planet evolved, being too close to the two sun, just being slightly too close or degrees off, like the way the planet's tilted, it leading to the devastation and few plant like over sol like the sun being overexposed on the planet. Ugh,
I,
that kind of thing. Just like a consequence of evolution and shit, but whatever. Alana stepped off the Fury and was struck cold by what she saw. The village was in ruins. Bodies were scattered everywhere. An X-Wing fighter was burning on the outskirts of the village. None of the corpses seemed to have any weapons or appear to be militant or hired thugs. As such, she could only conclude the village, excuse me, had no real defenses with which to fight back. It was a proper one-sided massacre. But worst of all, she could feel the dark side of the Force lingering in the air. It was faint. Whoever had done this was clearly inexperienced, but she knew this was done by a Force user. Okay, so inexperienced, just stopping a laser bolt in the air. Her, based on how the Force works, which is within the limits of physical capability at the very least, meaning that the Jedi would have had that he would have to have reaction time damn near equivalent to the speed of light. And for the record, there has only really ever been one mention of Jedi and of the Force imbuing someone to the point where they became they pulled like the Dragon Ball Z teleport kind of thing.
Yep. Instant transmission.
Yeah, but in the middle of the fight kind of thing, like where they'll disappear and reappear in a different position to hit each other. And the presumed thing is they're fighting in between these bursts. But like there's only one mention of that throughout the entire through most of what I know of the EU. And that was when Mace Windu fought Palpatine, using his style, using the style of lightsaber combat he developed to the point where they'd just become an infinite dynamo of of the Force, empowering them both. So again, inexperienced to stop a laser bolt in midair. Taking a deep breath and preparing herself for the worst, the Sith drew her lightsaber and cut through the fallen barricades of the village. There had to be someone still alive. Her lightsaber remained active as she scrounged the village for any signs of life or even a clue as to what had happened. The sand shimmered a bright red in the glow of her lightsaber as her eyes darted to every inch they could see. Almost everyone was dead, but she could sense a brief life still flickering. Through her persistence, she finally found it. An old man curled up in the sand. She hurried over to him and held her lightsaber aloft so she could see his face.
That guy that Kylo Ren cut down,
I would guess so.
somehow not dead, just by being cut down.
Yeah. Or maybe he was one of the random villagers that were huddled in a circle. Maybe he got lucky. And it was a glancing blow. Fatal, but glancing enough to have him live this long. Oh, nope. He'd been cut deep by a lightsaber. So this is the guy. So he lived long enough after being cut in half by a lightsaber or to,
Oh.
have this conversation with this other person.
I'm surprised Kylo let him live. If he had survived the lightsaber, I imagine he would Kylo probably would have sliced at him several more times, considering how deranged he is.
Yeah. What happened here? She asked, examining his wounds. A large smoldering gash could be seen right across his chest. There was no mistaking it. He'd been cut deep by a lightsaber. There was nothing she could do for him. This cut, as deep as this and wide, was fatal. The old man coughed and looked up
Well,
at her. The first order.
surely you could try force healing.
Oh yeah, she exactly, Joe. You are correct. There's nothing she could do. Like, yeah, she could do force healing because, as we know, well, the Force can heal fatal lightsaber wounds. But I would guess that it's because Rey and Kylo Ren are sort of, you know, the dyad in the Force. They're both the chosen one. Chosen for the dark and chosen for the light.
Oh, you remember that movie better than I do.
What did they want? The First Order. Alana huffed. She should have known. What did they want? Skywalker. They took Resistance pilot. Alana quickly tried to piece together everything the man was saying. The First Order was looking for a Skywalker. That had to have been Luke Skywalker, the old Jedi Master. And they took a Resistance pilot. What for? The Resistance had no idea where Skywalker was, and nobody did.
You
Then it
forgot
dawned
to
on her.
capitalize resistance.
Mm. Then it dawned on her. The old man did. He'd told the pilot. She felt a hand on her face and looked back down to see the old man touching her cheek. You're not a Jedi. He Alana shook her head. I am a Sith Lord. Will you help?
What makes him think the Sith Lord would help?
I don't
And
know,
why
but
the
we're
fuck would
almost
she
done.
confess to
Why?
that? I imagine if
Like,
she said, "I'm a Sith Lord," his face would have turned paler than it already was. He probably would have died of fright right there.
yeah, like what?
He'd probably, if anything, he'd probably think that she was with Kylo Ren in some shape or form.
Alana stared down at him, her heart racing. She tried to stay out of the war between the Republic and the First Order beyond a few odd jobs. She wasn't a desired ally of the Republic, and she'd decapitate herself before she considered joining the First Order. She had always tried to help whenever she could, but operating from the shadows and usually nothing big, getting involved in helping in a way that the old man was asking would mean stepping into the sunlight. And the sunlight was dangerous. Wow. Just tear open the plot hole in your own fic because very clearly Alana doesn't care. Alana very much doesn't care who knows she's a Sith Lord, but also operates in the shadows. Which Alana operating from the shadows means that you work through third parties, or backdoor deals, or under aliases. Nobody would know it was you. You would use agents you had already collected or your family has collected to, go and do things. You walk around declaring yourself a Sith, not working from the shadows. You're not hiding anything. Also, yes, the sun is hot,
Really, I didn't know that.
and sunlight was dangerous. It's such a weird sentence. Knowing she was probably going to get herself killed, she nodded. Yes, I will. The old man seemed to relax, and his hand slipped from her cheek. Thank you, Sith. Again, why? His
Yeah,
head looked back, and his breathing became raspy and shallow. Knowing how much pain he was in, Alana brought her lightsaber to his neck, quickly severed his head. She looked away from his body and started back towards her ship. She just promised to help, but now what was she supposed to do? As she was about to head up the ramp to the Fury, she spotted something out of the corner of her eye. A small divot in the sand that stretched out into the horizon. Something had been rolling out into the desert. Something that had been here not too long ago. It was headed vaguely in the direction of Nema Outpost, which, with any luck, it would be there by tomorrow afternoon. With new resolve, she got back into the Fury, prepared to return to the outpost. It looked like her stay on Jakku was going to be a bit longer. Whew. Okay. Um.
For new readers looking at the word count and wondering, Ray and Aliana get together in chapter 14. Well, thanks for spoiling it.
Yeah. No kidding. Like. Okay. So he's just like, oh, well, what do I do now? Huh. I could go rescue that resistance pilot. That seems like something I could do. Or I could go volunteer my services is at the resistance recruitment, or I could become an infiltrator and infiltrate the first order and spy on them and give the information to the resistance.
Uh, I'm still wondering, like, why the fuck would the old man trust her?
Yeah, that's a good question too.
The Sith have
Also,
a really bad track record of when it comes to doing the right thing.
also, just here, I'm just gonna mercy kill you instead of feeding and gaining sustenance from your pain and misery. The fact that you're dying and there's nothing you can do about it. Yes, dark side. I agree with you, Rone, but it's important that we know that.
Yes. Yes, I like your comment, Joe Crazy. I don't like sunlight. It's bright, warm, it lights up everything.
Ah, but that was chapter 1. We'll be
Oh
back
boy.
with chapter 2.
How many chapters are there in total?
Let me see. Eh, 42.
Oh Christ, we're not going to be able to do this whole thing, are we? What? Why the fuck is
So wait.
homophobia a tag? Let's
So
see.
wait.
Canon
Hold on.
rewrite: strangers to love, anti-Raylo, homophobia, healthy relationships, friends to lovers, married couple, alternate universe, canon divergent, dark side Ray, canon typical violence, republic critical, Jedi critical, two traumatized lesbians finding each other, post or PTSD and grief and mourning. Christ Almighty. Two traumatized that's an entire tag.
So wait the so they get together in chapter 14. What what else could happen? Like what? Whew.
I'm surprised it doesn't have Antifa or anti-capitalism listed as one of the tags.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, that was horrible. We should do this
That
again
was
sometime.
not fun. Fine. I found out that it had 42 chapters now. Oh god. All right. Well, thank you all so much for watching. We will be back hopefully not next week. I have a family thing next week. The week after with another episode. And we will likely be covering oh, there definitely will be anti-capitalism later. But will be hope next episode we'll either continue this, or if I can find it, we'll do the Venom is gay article.
Oh lordy.
And then after that we'll continue with this.
All right.
But for now, thank you all so much for watching. And y'all have a great night.
Yeah. Take care.